Habitat 8 News coming at you live.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This week on Habitat 8 News, we'll be discussing several topics on human population. Along with me, my name is Skip, this is Stan, and we have two guest stars also today, Nelson and Andre. They'll also be talking about different topics of human population.
Welcome, folks.
Our first topic I'll personally be discussing today is human population growth and its cause. Now tell me, Stan, do you know how many people are in the world today?
I'm going to guess around 65,000.
Well, you're incredibly wrong. We're around 7 billion.
Alright, you got the answers over there.
Alright, let's try another one. Do you know the reason why the population grew so rapidly in the 1900s?
I'd have to guess the stork.
It's not the stork. Well, let me tell you, folks. Prior to the 1800s, population growth was very slow and didn't grow very fast because death rates and birth rates were equally the same. But then, at the end of the 1800s and beginning of 1900, medicine was getting popular and could increase the age of several elderly people. So, in the 1900s, the population growth would go from 1 billion to 2 billion to 3 billion to 4 billion. All within 30 to 15 years, it started rapidly growing, which is the exponential growth of the human population. And it's said that in the end of the 22nd century that our population will grow to around 10 billion and then start leveling off because the Earth cannot exceed any more human beings.
10 bill.
What this graph is showing is basically at the beginning of the time period prior to the 1800s is where the population was so low, and then where exponential growth is where from in the 1900s the population grew so rapidly, and at the top of the graph is where the population growth will start to end off at 10 billion because Earth's capacity won't be able to hold as many human beings.
That's pretty neat. Alright, Skip, let's hear about your next topic you got over there.
Well, Stan, our next topic is how different countries differ in population growth.
Interesting.
Well, Stan, the UN divides the countries in three categories according to their GNP. First category is the high-income, highly developed, industrialized countries. This group includes USA, Canada, Japan, and Western Europe countries. They have an average GNP of around $25,000.
Big bucks.
The second group is the middle income, the moderately developed countries, which these include countries in Latin America, Mexico, Northern and Southern African countries, with an average GNP of $3,000. The third group is the developing countries, the low-income countries. This includes Eastern and Western and Central Africa, India, and other countries in Central Asia. Their GNP is around $500, which means they need more money.
They're struggling.
An intriguing fact with these three different groups is that 20% of the population that live in these developed countries own 80% of the wealth.
Now let me guess this, Skip. So 80% of the population owns 20% of the wealth?
Is
that what you're saying?
That is correct.
That's wild.
That's a crazy fact. With 80% of the population being in these developing countries, that's basically because of the total fertility rate, and that is the average number of children a woman has determines largely on how the population growth is. Without child mortality, a fertility rate of 2 keeps a stable population because they would replace both parents, but if we include child death, it's 2.1 for developed countries and even higher for developing countries. Fertility rate is much lower in rich nations. So basically what we're seeing today is an increase in poor nations and a decrease in rich nations, and that's the reason why developing countries have such a high population.
That's pretty neat, Skip.
Neato. The last topic I'll be talking about is environment and social impacts. Ever since the population has increased, larger demands on environment has also increased. Prior to the population boom, people could live off the land because the land would regenerate for generation to generation. As the population grows, the environment decreases. Weird fact is that USA demands 20 times more environmental use than the less developed countries, so this equals consumption problems.
Big consumption problems, folks.
The three factors of sustainability issues that the world is concerning about is 1, the population growth, 2, consumer lifestyle of developed countries and how they take so much environment and consumptions, and 3, the lack of environment and stewardship. And all three of these need to be addressed to stay in a better future. And since enhancements in medicine and nutrition led to less deaths, environment can't keep up, and we can't live off the land anymore like we did prior to the 1800s. So they thought of 5 alternatives. 1, intensify cultivation of existing land to increase population. 2, open up new land to farm. 3, move to cities to seek employment. 4, engage in illegal activities for income. And 5, immigrate to other countries legally or illegally. All 5 of these alternatives had negative influences on the environment, and so none of these alternatives were really a good alternative. And that wraps up my 3 topics today.
Thanks for your input, Skip. After this commercial break, we'll be back with my co-anchor and good buddy Nelson. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here with my good buddy Nelson. What you got for us over there, Nelson?
Well, we'll be speaking a little about dynamic populations. Growth.
Interesting.
All right, and we're going to look at, in the population growth, we need to look at more than just the increase of the numbers, but the longevity, so like the individual's lifetime. And to start with that, I would like to look at a population profile, which is just a graph that's going to help us visually look at this.
Let's see it.
What you're looking at is a profile of developing countries and developed countries. And as you can see, the developing countries are in a pyramid shape with a high fertility rate, or simply a high number of children with a low population of older people. Now look over at the developed countries. It's a cylinder-shaped profile, and you can see that it's almost equal rates throughout the profile. So you're having fewer children than the developed countries. With that being said, now I'd like to jump over to the demographic transition, which is where we can see the crude birth rates and the crude death rates and the causal link between modernization and the decline in birth and death rates. Now, we're just looking at a focus on overtime and the cause of mortality affecting certain populations, such as healthcare and disease patterns. And we're going to see that in societies go through transitions of high birth rate and death rates, and then to low birth rates and death rates. And just like to list those off, I got another diagram to show you, help you visualize a little bit. And if you look over at your far left there, you're going to see that number 1 is the death rates and birth rates are high and are roughly imbalanced. They're shaking around there. You're going to have 9 kids here and 6 kids here. We're all over the place. And then move on over a little bit to your right, and you're going to see death rates drop rapidly due to the improvements in food supply and sanitation, which increases lifespans and reduces diseases and stuff, so people are living. Without a corresponding fall in birth rates, though, so countries are still having a large number of babies, and you're going to see that large increase in population. Alright, now we're going to move over to 3. Birth rates fall due to access to protection, increasing wages, urbanization, and that's just going to take us to where the population starts to level off a little bit. And we're going to go to number 4. It's just the far right, where you see birth rates and death rates are both low. Birth rates may drop below replacement level, leading to shrinking populations, which would be a good thing at this time. So with this all being said, hopefully for going forward, as humans, we're going to try to reach that 4th stage for everyone. Even for the developing countries, we're going to see
stage to be at.
Exactly. But even for those developing countries, you're going to see a lot of population momentum, which simply is even if they start decreasing, all these children have less babies and stuff, it's still going to take till those youth become full-grown adults till we see the direct effect of it.
To start kicking in.
But hopefully we'll like to see that soon. Get us into the 4th stage, everyone living together in the 4th stage. And that brings me to my next topic, which is factors of influencing family sizes.
Let's hear it, Nelson.
And we're going to look at the developing countries, and we see the number 1 reason, or number 1 on our list right here, is going to be a lot of times they're looking for the security in their old age. So they want to make sure that they have children watching over them when they get older, because in a lot of developing countries it's traditional for the children to care for the parents once they become of age, because they don't have health care.
Fair enough.
What we have here. So then that takes me to number 2. We're also going to see a high infant rate and children mortality. So see a lot of kids dying at a young age, which is awful.
That's unfortunate.
It truly is. But we're going to see that a lot in developing countries. So the mothers are going to try to have more children, to secure their policy, that insurance policy we're looking at. So we're going to be a lot of high mortality, and you're going to see high fertilization rate. And exactly. So we're going to look at number 3. Which you're going to have the children helping out the mom with all the work that she's got to do. And then you got number 4. There's not the importance of education, because if they go to school, they're not there to help the mother's work. So it's not as important there, so you don't see that. Number 5, you see the status of women. They're discriminated there. They don't have that same role they do here in the U.S. of A. So we're going to look at that, and you're going to see that there's not as many things for women to do, and you find them just bearing children because that's the one thing they have kind of to do to help them out with what they do have to do. And so then we look at number 6, the last one's the lack of technology and availability for protection. It's like there's no way once she has this child, she's having that child. And we see this change in industrialization and modernization. That's where it comes to the more developed countries, and we see it's a little bit different. There's not as an importance for people to have security with their children, because we got health care, we got Medicare, and we have all that social security to secure you later. And you get number 2, they have a lower infant mortality, so children aren't dying. It's not as important to have 4 children. Most likely your 2 or 1 is going to be fine. And then you see 3, education's important here. And higher for women, truly, to even have careers and stuff. And last, we have 5, the unrestricted access to protection, pretty much. You could go to the store, find whatever you need. We also have abortion, all that. But and that wraps up what I have to talk about
Thanks
today.
for having you, Nelson.
I appreciate it. It's always a pleasure.
We'll be back with Skip and Andre. Cheers to that, Nelson.
Welcome back. My name's Skip, and this is my friend Andre to tell us about.
I'm here to tell you about issues of population and absence of development. Brian, did you know that in one issue of population that women are being educated?
I did not.
You do now. And around half of all Indian women cannot read or write. However, in Kerala, 85% of women are literate. Better educated women are more likely to keep their children healthy. Therefore, infant mortality has dropped. This has led to a drop in birth rates. If children are surviving, families no longer have to have a couple of children replace the ones that die.
Wow, that is interesting fact.
That is mind-blowing. That is all true. And contraception is more widely available.
Really?
Oh, yes. The status of women has improved significantly. Women are no longer seen as a burden. They are regarded as an asset. Traditionally in India, when a woman gets married, the family have to pay the money to the bridegroom's family. This is called a dowry. However, in Kerala, it is the bridegroom's family who pay a dowry to the bride's family. Population changes in more developed countries, such as... What's a good developed country around here?
I'd say the big old USA.
USA.
USA it is.
USA!
USA!
In most more developed countries, population growth is stable. Most developed countries have low birth rates and death rates. In some parts of Germany, the birth rate is lower than the death rate. That is just mind-boggling true.
Wow.
This means there's a decrease in population or a natural increase of negative 1.1%.
That is very interesting, Andre. Tell us about your next topic.
Well, my next topic, Skip, is new direction of development. What I know is reviews, perspectives, and lessons from past development experience emphasizing the need to reach beyond economics to address social issues in a holistic fashion. The role of institutions development points to the institutional changes necessary to ensure sustainable development.
Wow.
Oh, yes.
Wow.
Wow. The principal goal of development policy is to create sustainable improvements for the quality of life for all people.
That's what we want.
That's what we want in this country.
Goal we go
all
for.
over, yes. While raising per capita incomes and consumptions remains a part of that goal, other objectives reducing poverty, expanding access to health services, and increasing educational levels emerge, and meeting these goals requires a comprehensive approach to development.
Fantastic.
Mind-blowing. Understanding the process of development requires acknowledging both its complexity and the context in which it operates, simple solutions, investments in physical and human capital. For example, will not work in isolation. Governments, the private sector, civil society, and other organizations need to work together in support of broad-based development.
What we need, support.
Support. USA.
USA. And we're back.
Stan, I know all this chat is made me really interested in what do you want to say? You had something to wrap it all up.
This is a
didn't
little
you?
something I whipped up in the back room. I'm just offering some ideas on how we can control this population. It's a big concern here in the States. So the best way to control is to have the citizens buy into the system. You don't want to revolt. So China did a great job of controlling their population. Let's look a little more into what they did.
Yeah, let's.
First off, they had a paid leave for women nursing babies, a maternity leave, and so they were paid to raise their children.
Oh,
Great.
Yeah.
Great. A monthly subsidy to one-child families. A little bonus comes in the mail. You get some cash for just having one child. Job priorities for only children. That's another big thing. Additional food rations for only children and housing preferences for single-child
Oh.
families. See, these are all adding up.
Clearly, it's all aimed at
They also
one
have
child.
penalties for an excessive number of children, so more than one. A payment of a tax for a second child. So you're getting taxed for every additional child that you have. Higher food prices for the second child. And also, the maternity leave and paid medical expenses are only for the first child born.
Oh.
So these are all ways that we can control our population here in the States, USA.
Greatest country. Oh, this chatter's got me interested. You got any more of that?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
For my last topic, I've got the ethics on population control. See, there's many ways that people think we can deal with this population dilemma, but first is some argue that the population control is not necessary because technology will always advance, and with the advancement of technology, there will be better ways to live for more people. But with depleted resources, that's really not a realistic solution. And another theory is perhaps a war, disease, famine, or natural disaster will come along and deal with the population itself. Maybe set it back a couple notches, like back in the 80s.
Oh, see, yeah. Oh,
Good
yeah.
times,
Good
good
days, good
times.
days. Wow.
But an example is the AIDS death rate per year is 2.7 million, or 4% of the population. So that's a big famine right there, just not doing very much. Humans' approach this is also to avoid it, and there would be a change of perspective needed, and that probably won't happen in this lifetime. See, another way is for forced sterilization and abortion. A group would have to be appointed to decide which families can have children, which can't, but here in the States, we don't believe in that.
US of A.
Best option, in my eyes, is to create a situation where people want to have fewer children, like the China situation I touched up on. And that's all we have for today, folks.
Oh,
Nelson,
plenty.
great
Trust
to
me.
have you.
Oh, it's always a pleasure.
This is Habitat 8 News, signing out.
Good night, San Diego. Gotta go home and shave his mustache.
Yeah, I talked to Karen about that. She's pretty upset. Not a fan of the stuff.